on our own. Going down the only road we've ever known. Regular season, the Buffalo Bills have the head-to-head 4-1. Postseason, Kansas City has the head-to-head 3-0. So in preview extravaganza of yet another Kansas City-Buffalo matchup, I ask, will it be a coronation for Kansas City or a vanquishing and Buffalo finally breaking through? But for starters, humor me, national battle. Take the team names and player names off the jerseys, erase the team records, pocket your I'm not betting against Mahomes or Kansas City is inevitable or Buffalo can't get over the hump arguments for a moment. Kevin Clark, around the horn to you. Who is the better team right now heading into this AFC title game?
I'm going to start with my I'm a man of science take, and that's this. Number one, these Buffalo Bills are really good at playing against the blitz. The Kansas City Chiefs, obviously top 5 at blitzing in the league. Well, the Buffalo Bills offensive line is top 5 in allowing pressures against the blitz. They're really good. Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the NFL against pressure. There's a lot of cases to be made that the Buffalo Bills are going to score a bunch of points this weekend, or more than they have to. Having said that, I will never bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. I will never bet against Patrick Mahomes because, to quote the great football philosopher John Gruden, Patrick Mahomes isn't into dreams, he's into nightmares. And it is a nightmare to play against Patrick Mahomes because he always does just enough to win. 16 straight one-score wins, 12 one-score wins just this season, the most in the history of the NFL. This is an astounding team that knows exactly what they have to do in every situation. This Bills team, if you're just doing blind resumes, gets the win, but that's not what I'm going with.
Okay, wait, this is an astounding answer, to borrow your word, because I don't think you answered the question until the very end there. I asked, blind resume, who is the better team right now? Your answer to that question, Kevin Clark.
Is the Buffalo Bills, but that's not, they don't play the game with blind resumes.
Right, we're not playing the game right now either. I'm asking, just humor me, Mita Kives. Who is the better team right now?
I think the Bills are the slightly better team just in terms of blind resume, but I think more importantly than that, Tony, they're the better team because they match up well with Kansas City, which is what these playoffs are all about. Okay. It's what you saw on display during the regular season. So the Kansas City Chiefs have an elite cornerback, Trent McDuffie. If you have a number one wide receiver to sacrifice to him, that's a problem. It was a problem with the Houston Texans and Nico Collins. He was in his hip pocket the entire game. The Bills don't have a number one wide receiver. They have a bunch of guys that they can use to hunt matchups. So there's really not that same advantage from having Trent McDuffie. And you saw that the last time, by the way. They used Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir to go after the linebackers, the safeties, the other cornerbacks on the Kansas City Chiefs. I think a similar dynamic is going to play out this time. I think this version of the Bills is built to take on this version of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Courtney Cronin, around the horn to you. Who's the better team right now?
It's Buffalo, and to pick up where Mina left off there, they're not compromised in the place where they have been before. Their offensive line is their strength. So you're taking an equal strength of what Kansas City's going to try to counter with that, which is their defense and Steve Spagnuolo's well-timed blitz, knowing when to bring pressure. We saw it last week when the Chiefs looked like they could be got, and that the Houston Texans were mounting that comeback. Well, Spags dials up the pressure and puts an end to that, but the Bills are playing better football right now, scoring a ton of points. They have 8 turnovers this whole season. And to watch what Josh Allen has done, playing mistake-free football, the best of his career at this point, that's the type of performance you need to go into Kansas City to threaten the Chiefs and win.
David Dennis Jr., around the horn to you. Better team right now.
Better team right now is the team that has Patrick Mahomes. And we'll see here the difference from what happened in Week 11 to week now. There are things that I just don't think that he will do that he did in the regular season. He started the game with a bad pick. He ended the game with a pick, and that really shifted the time of possession a lot to the Bills' favor. I think that Mahomes will erase some of those turnovers, especially because the fact they have not turned the ball over since then in Week 11. So I think they can hold on to that time of possession. Also in that game, Kelsey was only 2 receptions for 8 yards. Last week, Mahomes was 10 for 11 on about 12 yards per catch to those tight ends. These are the things that ramp up in the playoffs that I think Mahomes is going to use to his advantage.
Kevin Clark, back to you. Any other matchup advantages or disadvantages you're flagging?
Yeah, first of all, playoff Kelsey, we haven't even brought him up. I mean, he's going to get open in that Buffalo defense. What does he do? And then the thing I'm watching is Buffalo is injured in their secondary right now. Taylor Rapp is out. A couple other injuries there. That's the one you don't want to be injured going against Mahomes.
And Mina, any other matchups you're circling?
Well, another thing that happened the last time, to David's point with Patrick Mahomes, that I don't expect to happen again, 0 scrambling attempts. I mean, this is what Patrick Mahomes does in the playoffs. He carries the football. I do think Buffalo is very good at stopping scrambling quarterbacks. You saw that in the last round, but I would expect Mahomes to use
All right, it's time. Time for who you got and how this game will be won. The Mina Kimes around the horn to you. Whoa, what happened there? I didn't touch anything. You saw it. I didn't touch anything. Go ahead, Mina.
Can I speak? Okay, I can. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills for the reasons I articulated at the top. I think this version of the Bills offense is built to take on this version of the Chiefs.
Courtney Cronin.
I, too, am going with the Buffalo Bills. This run game has evolved significantly since their last matchup in Week 11, and they've gone 12 games this season without turning the ball over. It becomes 13 on Sunday.
David Dennis Jr.
I'm going Chiefs, and they're going to do this at the last second like they have been doing all season, leaving Buffalo to feel like they should have won that game, just like a lot of other teams that lose to the Chiefs this season.
Kevin Clark.
It's the Chiefs. It's close, late field goal, something like that. These guys are supernaturally good.
Something like that.
All the
Hey!
analytics things,
Scoop of chocolate,
all the
scoop of
analytics
vanilla.
I
Don't waste my time.
It go out the window.
All right. Commanders Eagles
Bingo.
now. Here's video of Jalen Hurts at practice moving. His knee injury from Sunday was one thing you may have been wondering how he'll look in practice. Everybody has a different view of how he looked in practice, but you can tell me how you feel. Hurts versus Jayden Daniels. Of course, they don't match up against each other, but to focus on the quarterbacks, which quarterback would you rather have in this matchup? And Washington's team of destiny status. 1 game away from the Super Bowl. They would be the longest preseason odds in 4 decades to make it, and Daniels would be the first rookie quarterback ever to make it, win a championship game. That's uncharted territory. Mina Kimes, around the horn to you on an X factor or matchup that decides this one.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, I'd rather have Jayden Daniels, but I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles in this one because of a different Jalen, not their quarterback, Jalen Carter, who has the single biggest matchup advantage in this game. The Commanders lost their starting right guard, Tam Cosmi, their best interior offensive lineman. He tore his ACL. Terrible timing because Jalen Carter is playing out of his mind right now, and because of him, they don't have to blitz Daniels the way teams have done to disastrous effect. They can lean on that format.
Courtney Cronin, X factor or matchup for you in this one?
My X factor is the obvious one. It's Saquon Barkley, and I know that he hasn't had, like, bulk volume-wise, the most rushing success against this Washington Commanders defense before. In the meetings that they've seen them in this season, 3 carries went for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. 26 other ones went for 2 yards or less. But with Jalen Hurts said today he's going to be wearing a brace on his knee. His mobility is going to be at a disadvantage here. So I'm going to lean on the run game the way that they did in the elements at the link last week, and I think that's the formula that they use on Sunday.
Give me that stat again. It's always interesting. You could look at yards per carry and say, this is all added up to something good. But you just said it. There were 3 runs, and then everything else was shut down. The stat once again?
The stat is 26 carries went for 2 yards or less in their matchups with Washington this season, and that 3 of them